Hey everybody, my name is Morley, and today we're going to take this simple Ikea bed frame and add a ton of integrated storage with these easy to build but super classy rolling drawers. We just moved into our new apartment, which we are super excited about. This place has way more space than our old apartment, but the bedroom, as you can see, is pretty small. We do have just enough room right here to add a wardrobe, but since this space is so small, I think it would make the room feel really crowded. So instead of adding a wardrobe, what I'm gonna do is build drawers to put under the bed so we can store all of our clothes in them. So I already made one improvement to this Ikea bed frame before we even moved into this apartment. This particular bed frame comes with slats, and they are an absolute nightmare. They would fall for no reason, and we would always have to lift up our mattress, get them resituated. I tried screwing them into place, but it didn't really work, so I actually just replaced them with 2 pieces of plywood, and these are so much better. I can't tell you how much of a quality of life improvement it is to not have the platform that your bed sits on collapse for no reason. It's nice to be in a structurally sound bed. Now, this particular bed frame only has about 7.5 inches of clear space underneath. That's not a lot of room for storage. I want to build drawers that are 10 inches deep, 4 feet long, and about 16 inches wide. So the first thing I want to do is build risers so we can lift this bed up and get that amount of clear space. Let's get to it.
Now, you might be thinking that this is an overcomplicated, pointless DIY solution, and I could have just bought those plastic bed risers that you see in any college dorm room. And I did consider these. But I wanted to squeeze in as much storage space as possible over the full length of the bed. Those plastic risers are pretty wide, and they would take away from the available storage space, so I opted to build some super simple risers from 1x2 lumber. Another advantage of these DIY risers is that they don't stick out past the end of the bed frame, and that means I can make the drawer fronts flush with the head and foot of the bed, and you wouldn't see ugly plastic risers sticking out past the drawer fronts. This will make more sense later on in the video. I installed the 4 corner risers by screwing their long sections into the existing legs with some 3-inch wood screws. I made sure to drill countersunk pilot holes and extend these holes with a longer drill bit so that I wouldn't split either piece of wood. This Ikea bed frame has a center bar with 3 legs. Each of these legs is simply screwed into this center bar, so I didn't bother making the same sort of stilt risers that I made for the corners. I could just replace these legs with some longer 1x2s. However, the 2 off-center legs weren't evenly positioned and needed to be moved to the quarter points so that the drawers would fit in between. The risers added 4.5 inches of height, giving me a total of 12.5 inches of clear space under the bed. And I was happy to see that the lifted bed was just as sturdy as the original. Now that we have enough room underneath the bed, let's move on to building the drawers. The 4 drawers are 48 inches long, 17 inches wide, and 10.5 inches tall. They required a couple full sheets of 1/2-inch plywood, and I cut most of this to size in the lumberyard parking lot with my cordless circular saw. The people at the lumberyard were cool with this, but I didn't want to overstay my welcome, so I tried to limit my work to repetitive cuts that I could do quickly and finished up the rest of the cuts just outside my apartment. The casters that I'm using are 2 inches tall, and I didn't want to lose all of that valuable vertical space. So, before putting the drawer boxes together, I cut slots in each bottom piece so I could recess the casters inside the drawers. Once I had cut all 16 slots, I was ready to put the drawer boxes together with glue and my 18 gauge cordless brad nailer. This process is a lot easier on a big flat workbench, but I made do with a couple of folding sawhorses. I started by attaching one of the long sides to the bottom piece. I worked my way continuously from one end to the other to avoid creating a bubble, and pulled the edges flush as I went. You can see why this would be a lot easier with the continuous support of a flat work surface. Once I had this edge secured, I used one of the end pieces to square them up. Once I got the second end piece attached, I could finish up the drawer box with the final long piece. Getting everything square along these 3 edges may look tricky, but it's really the same strategy as before. Establish a corner and work from that corner along the edge, pulling everything flush as you go. As long as everything is cut square into correct lengths, you should arrive at the end of the glue line with a nice matching corner. But if it doesn't match perfectly, it's not the end of the world, as these edges will be hidden and sanded. After building the 4 drawer boxes, I could turn my attention to the casters. I needed to mount the casters against a solid surface, and pieces of 1x2 were perfect for this. I used the CA glue and activator trick to hold the pieces in place while the wood glue dried. I've made the mistake in the past of installing these style of casters with wood screws, and it's a mistake because the mounting holes in these casters aren't countersunk, so the heads of the wood screws can stick out too far and interfere with the wheel when there's weight in the drawer. So I made sure to install these casters with some short panhead screws.
I don't think we could possibly fit one more thing inside. Oh my gosh. You cozy, Penny?
Hey, you want some champagne?
Whoppa! Happy new apartment.
Happy apartment!
Our new apartment is better than the old place in almost every way. And one of the more convenient improvements, at least in relation to my making, is that we now have a garage in the back with power outlets. And that means that I can now use my corded tools outside. No more using the bathroom as a sanding booth. So, after giving each drawer box a quick sanding in our snowy back alley, they were ready to install under our newly lifted bed. The drawer fronts are made from 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood. When I was first designing this project, I was thinking of making some leather drawer pulls, or maybe some interesting 3D printed knobs. But after a bit of thought and conversations with Eden, this seemed to be begging for Penny to play with them in the middle of the night, or, in the case of the 3D printed knobs, for one of us to kick them straight off the drawer fronts in an early morning, bleary-eyed days. So, I instead decided to cut a 45-degree bevel in the top edge to act as an integrated drawer pull. This was definitely the right choice. In addition to protecting our shins and our sanity, the flat drawer faces look super classy. I took advantage of the beautiful sunny day to sand the 4 drawer fronts up to 220 grit and then finish them with 3 coats of Varathane diamond wood finish in crystal clear semi-gloss. And now, I guess I have to concede to my friend Grant Alexander, who was 100% right when he said that having a separated workshop at the new apartment would not at all hinder me from spreading out onto the kitchen table. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll leave a link in the description to Clamp, the weekly podcast that I host with Grant Alexander and Adam Mackey. I designed the drawer fronts so that they completely cover the bed frame, with a 1/2-inch gap in between each drawer front and a 1-inch gap between the fronts and the floor. I'll be honest, I put off installing the drawer fronts for a few days because I really wanted consistent clean gaps, and I was a little nervous about achieving this. But in the end, by using some double-sided tape and plywood spacers, I was able to get really nice consistent gaps without too much trouble. You can see here that I actually waited long enough to install the fronts that at this point, we had already moved our clothes into the drawers, which I had to move before securing each drawer front with some countersunk 1.25-inch wood screws. I repeated this process for the other 3 drawers, but I had to switch up my strategy for the last drawer at the foot of the bed, since the floor here slopes towards the wall. On all of the others, I rested the drawer front on a 1-inch piece of plywood before pressing it against the double-sided tape. But here, I rested only one corner on the 1-inch spacer and then pushed it to the side against a 1/2-inch piece of plywood to create the gap between this drawer front and the one next to it. This was a little tricky, but it worked perfectly in the end. And after screwing the last drawer front in place, the bed drawers were done. These 4 massive drawers are a game changer for a small space, and they have enough room to hold all of our clothes that we would normally put in a bureau. The added storage is wonderful, and it's awesome not having a wardrobe taking up space. But I think the real star of the show are these Baltic birch drawer fronts. These things look so clean, and every time I use Varathane diamond wood finish on birch plywood, I am blown away at how good it looks. I definitely want to do more of these minimalist, European-style drawer fronts in the future. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, check out the rest of my channel for all sorts of other project videos. You can also follow me on Instagram to see what I'm up to between videos. I can promise you that our cat Penny makes frequent appearances in my Instagram stories. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.